Did I steal
Okay.
host from you? I hope not. I don't
Yeah.
think I did. Okay. Anyway, go
Yeah.
ahead.
If you make me the co-host, it would be great.
Yeah, I'll do
Thank you.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hi everybody. Today is 15th April. So we are having the AI discussion. So it's just like to provide some new context since we get a new crowd here. So it's basically there's the Spring AI, and also there's a different runtimes like Quarkus, OpenLiberty also provide launching 4G samples, and also Quarkus have some like annotations. And then Antoine and also Enrique basically
Yeah,
did a more.
yeah, there were a lot of people on the doc we worked on. So there was Rican, Antonio, Jean-François,
Oh yeah,
Ali, etc. So it's
it's a joint
very
effort.
very community working doc. I put the link. It's in
I,
the
oh, okay,
so
I can see the
we
link now.
started
Yeah,
to put some ID and try to organize them on different topic. The first would be the goal and vision we can have, and after that, putting a few ID for our meeting. So having some guests, for instance, and start with all the existing initiative in the AI framework in Java. Perhaps there are more, and we started to list all the feature we like in those framework, and we start to talk about a little prototyping, and the big part, which will be probably the TCK of the spec. So that's
yeah.
it.
Okay, so that's great. So let me, Antoine, can you lift it and that dog I'm playing here? And also we can go through that dog. And also Barik also got a dog, so can consolidate two dogs together. And the other thing that, no, another thing is I started a sandbox as well. So it's in the proposal AI. So it's basically in here. And then right now we can work on that at a doc, and then it's once we have some draft, we can put it in here. Antoine,
Yeah,
is that kind of what you are thinking as well?
yeah,
So
we talked
eventually,
about that.
yeah,
But I think it was a bit too soon to start with that. For instance, I thought it was a good idea to make sure that we agree on a goal for the first version of the spec.
yeah,
We weren't there is not a total agreement, but discussion about the fact that should we put a light RAG feature in this first version, or should we wait? I don't have a strong opinion on that, but I think it's a good discussion to have. But we can start with the parts on which we agree. The part is the fact we should use the spec to consume existing LLM.
yeah. I personally, I feel Iraq is very important. Is for any real use case. So they
So
will need to.
if we go that way, the discussion last week was more about starting with how to say, a more naive RAG consumption than a complete one, because it's a big part and it's a fast moving target, like Antonio said last week. Perhaps you can
Yeah.
add
Okay.
some point on that,
Let
Antonio.
me. Yeah. Let me stop share, and then would you like to share the proposal and then go through there? I just put the things.
Okay.
Stop. Yeah. Go for it.
So
No, last week I just said that RAG is moving quite fast. Every month there's new patterns, there's new everything. So there was several ideas. Either we don't do RAG now, or we do a naive RAG. And then there was also the question,
try
I
to
come
share.
from the JCP where once it's written, and bad luck. And Antoine was telling us that the MicroProfile standalone specification was a bit more flexible. Because
Yeah.
if we introduce something on a V1, and if we can change it on V2, good. If it's like the JCP and a specification, that's the end of it. And so we were a bit, either we don't do anything on RAG or we do something knowing that we can change it. So yeah, that was basically our thoughts.
Yeah, we can always change it. Okay, John has a hands up. John.
Yeah, I did comment to your suggestion, Antonio, basically saying that it would likely be a standalone spec. I don't see this ever being a part of the core platform. So we do have flexibility in the Java version. Although it shouldn't be ahead, it can be behind. So of what the core platform is. Yeah.
You know what? It will
Yeah.
it will be behind. It will be behind. That's
Well, yeah, that was based because
cannot
at
follow it.
first I wrote it could be completely independent, and then I had it like, no, not really.
Based on Java 5. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, I
So-
think this is good. The other thing is kind of this is pretty much moving really fast. So for this one, pretty much leads. Hopefully, we can also do quicker releases as well.
So,
Make a
yeah.
best use standalone spec.
So what I think we achieved as a temporary decision was the part I underlined here. Perhaps starting in V1 with a basic RAG and going in V2 with a more complex one, but as
Yeah.
still we define where the complexity start and when it stops.
Yeah, I think I will go with that. Basically, the other thing is that we also make a best use, throw it out and try it out and get feedback. If it doesn't work, and redo it, and then it's until it works. So,
In terms of scope related to the first version, there is also the question about monitoring at last. Monitoring LLM is an important part if you want to get some feedback about token consume, quality of answers, things like that. Do we plan to include something in V1, or do we consider it's too complex and we'll see that
Yeah, good point.
in the next version?
That's a good point.
yeah, I think personally, I feel we can push the metrics monitoring to the V2. For V1, basically, this is what I'm thinking. I would like to push V1 out sooner rather than later, and have some basic kind of functionalities, and then we go through from there. And then we get feedback and redo it and adding more kind of things.
Define sooner. What time frame are you thinking?
Actually, now is April, right? If we can get probably has to be 3Q. 3Q, I feel like is kind of the 3Q or 4Q will be sooner. This year, I feel like this year. We need
Yeah,
to have an implementation.
I think, but I may be wrong. I would say the most optimistic date could be around November, December.
Right.
But
Okay. I'm
if we-
always optimistic.
yeah, I know that.
You mean
But we can have a
the
good surprise.
You mean the spec plus a working implementation?
No, the spec.
As a spec, okay.
No, not the implementation. And the problem is the spec is the spec and the TCK. And the TCK is the part that we need the most.
Well, and a compatible implementation. You got to have a compatible implementation.
We must have it.
Yeah.
Because what we can do is to have it to how to say to gather a reaction from the community before going for a full implementation.
Yeah.
I think I'll throw in the usual comment on this, though, that at least for the philosophy of MicroProfile and other specs has been implement something first, make sure that you know that it's feasible, plausible, good, and then spec it. And I think we, certainly want to do similarly. We're not trying to spec something that's a suggestion for something somebody could do. It's more specking something that we know we like.
Done. So are you saying we should
Start
code
with
first and then specify?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm in favor of making sure that we have something implemented that we, collectively are trying stuff out and seeing if we think it's worth specking before we put that to a spec. Sorry, John, I see you got your hand up.
Oh, no, yeah. So you were going right down the path I raised my hand for, Don.
Yeah.
And it's a fast moving space, right?
Yes.
In trying to spec a fast moving space makes me ask the question, what is the spec for? Is it for consistency across platforms? Or is it to provide stability, right, for the developer? And this is where there's a lot of danger in trying to spec this like right now, right?
Really?
Yeah, so and there's been a little bit, I don't want to say controversy. There hasn't been full alignment, Don, on your point about like should we experiment with specs, right? Within MicroProfile. So I know like David, Tommy Tribe is more about let's experiment with in the spec space, whereas folks like Red Hat are like a lot more aligned with you, Don. It's like, well, let's experiment outside with implementations, get some things, and then spec it. Right. So we don't necessarily have full alignment, but this is a really fast moving area. At least as far as I'm not an AI expert, but this is my understanding, right? And trying to spec it too soon makes me worry. I do think we should be having the conversations. I do think we should have a sandbox and try these things out. But I'm worried about trying to rush something out by the end of this calendar year.
So here's what I'm thinking. So there's two reasons for the spec. One reason, basically two categories. One is there's a multiple implementation and trying to standardize it. This is basically is not falling into that category. The other category is something moving really fast, and then is we trying to get together and put all brains together and trying to come up with a programming model, and then it's kind of basically I don't think anybody is suggesting we just spec without any implementation. Obviously, we have to try it out and get a TCK done and run through the TCK with a implementation. So I think it's kind of we have not anyway in our process we need to have implementation anyway. So I think it.
Yeah, I get the point. So I don't think it will be this year that you'll have everything.
Yeah, that's fine. If it's I said I'm optimistic. I'm eager to have this out, but we have to try the best. So if how long it takes, it will takes, right? So it's we're not rushing anything through. So it's let's put aside the timeline and basically is focus on the what need to be done and with the programming model, so that basically we could join our force to work on one implementation or maybe it's multiple implementations, but is not I don't think is correct, is just doing nothing. Just waiting for the world to evolve, and then we just miss a boat, and then Spring AI got even more focus. So it's yeah. So the thing is anyway, we can carry on with all the kind of discussion, and once we are confident, basically we reach on some conclusion, we can put on the sandbox. And then is we can either we can decide whether work on the one implementation or multiple implementation. Oh, Antonio is trying to raise your hand. Yeah,
I
you
just,
can. Have you found out? You can raise your
Yeah,
hand.
but
Just click on reactions and then raise the hand.
yeah, but now I forgot my question. I was busy trying to find the raise hand thing.
Yeah. Anyway, when you find out the question, you can jump in and just discuss.
So for a more pragmatic point of view, so we should have a place to start creating an implementation. The sandbox you show for the spec and the TCK, that's it, and we move in parallel all the stuff. That's what you have in
Yeah.
mind. Or
Yeah,
start with the
so
implementation, forgot about the spec, and do the spec afterwards.
I think we can do in parallel. Basically, we can. I think it's not in parallel. Is we discuss and then is have a rough idea, and then we do the we implement it to see whether it makes sense. And then basically we say, oh, yeah, it makes sense. We carry on.
Okay.
So there's no in particular order. So it's obviously. Without any discussion, how can you do the implementation, right? So obviously we need to have a kind of architecture, and then we agreed, okay, that's pretty much with all the expertise here, all the smart people here. So and then roughly, I think we will be on the right path, and maybe the implementation will be kind of the straightforward. Yeah, I think it's architecture first, design first, and then import, and then and then retweak the design, and then basically come up with all the TCKs and etc.
Okay, but if we go for an implementation at the beginning with all the stuff, we should decide in the coming days, weeks, if we go for an implementation based on LangChain4j. I guess the answer might be yes, but perhaps I'm missing something. So I have a kind of wrapper around LangChain4j and define our specification above that. Does it make
Yes, I
sense?
think it's the right approach.
Yeah, yeah, I think yeah, it's a good idea. It's always basically move faster, standing on the giant shoulder, on the shoulder of the giant. So it's that basically is we spec whatever we spec this API prototype. So
I
you
think
have a embedding a client and then chat client.
Antonio want to speak, but is mute. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to raise my hand, but it bloody does not work. Anyway, just coming back from LangChain4j, I actually posted a question on the GitHub about, naming. It wasn't clear in my head. They use a user message, system message, and AI message. Everybody uses assistant message. So I said, hey, why do you use AI message instead of assistant message? And the answer was quite interesting. The answer was because LangChain uses AI message. So what I'm saying, and I agree with you. I think it's starting from LangChain4j is good, but remember that they also come with LangChain behind, and they try to follow LangChain as much as possible. This is just a tiny, simple, example, but typically everybody uses assistant message, assistant bot, assistant this and that, and they use AI message because LangChain, the Python version, uses this terminology, and they try to fit with the terminology. That's also why I wrote, it's also important to, I agree with Emily, to also do things in parallel, because we need to agree on architecture, on terminology. Typically, this question, should we name it assistant message or AI message? And there's hundreds of questions like that. So yeah, I just wanted to stress out that LangChain4j, has this relation with the Python LangChain, which is good, but could be bad.
And LangChain, the Python version is not very, let's say, well known for its clear documentation and clear design. So
Correct. Yeah. Like I also noticed in LangChain4j, there's it looks a bit like a Python developer wrote some Java code, because there's a lot of static classes and static methods. It's not very Java centric, because it focuses more on adhering to the other the original frameworks like LangChain and Llama Index and Haystack. And I believe LangChain4j takes concepts and ideas from all three of those and puts it into LangChain4j.
That's interesting. Yeah, I find that I have been working with some Python developers. I got similar similar opinion about when Python developers writing Java code. Yeah, that's interesting. So I think it's kind of at least, am I right? We are in agreement. We basically will be based on LangChain4j. Come up with our own annotation. So what Antoine showed here.
Yeah,
Wait, are we still?
the
Wait,
starting point.
let me understand. So we're trying to create a simplified API that for all these LLMs, and then at the back we're trying to use Lang4Chain as a reference implementation. Well, after working with some of these AIs as implementation, some of them are not as simple to integrate with. So would that mean if there's another company that brings another LLMs, we'll have to depend on LangChain4j again to create with an implementation so that we can work with it? Or can we just do it custom? Or some third party can just do a reference implementation based on the APIs that we generate?
So for the LangChain4j, it works with many LLMs. So it's if you are seeing Bohig, if it doesn't work with some LLM, it's better to fix on the LangChain4j. So fix on the upstream. So probably perhaps, yeah. So what's the kind of potential risk you think is a kind of, so what's your proposal then, Bohig? I know you also have a doc as well. I don't know whether they incorporated here or you came up from a different angle.
No, my idea was, for example, the complex ones that I've seen was Vertex, the Google Vertex, the AI, or Gemini, which is under Vertex now. And well, Azure is basically it's basically a wrapper of all the existing LLMs anyway. So that's not really a complex. Like Vertex, for example. I don't know if LangChain4j has support for Vertex, because that's basically a very complicated one to interface with, because they use protobuf underneath. So if we have like an API specification, and then, for example, if it say, okay, Google, let's try an interface with your Gemini using Vertex AI, that Google might be able to do it much easier than if we have to wait for example, LangChain4j to do it.
Sorry to interrupt. I think LangChain4j supports Vertex, and I think if there's any new LLM that appears in the next couple of months, well, they're probably going to follow the OpenAI model, because it's if they want to to be part of a piece of the to have a piece of the cake. I don't think they're going to completely invent something new unless they're Google, and Google, well, we already have it in Langchain 4J.
So
Okay.
I'm trying to understand, Maria. Are you saying that it's urgent to wait?
No. I'm saying it's not an issue. I'm saying it's I think it's okay to rely on Langchain 4J. If I don't think there's going to be from what I understand, the question was, what happens if there's a new LLM? Do we need to rely on Langchain 4J for its integration? My point of view is that if there's a new LLM, then they are going to follow the OpenAI standard, and the integration will be easy, and Langchain 4J will do it. Unless they are a big company like Google, perhaps they'll do something fancy like Vertex AI, but it's already done. So, yeah.
Okay.
So you
Oh,
mean
that's
Yeah.
yeah, go for it.
And Antoine, you're just sharing your screen. Sorry.
You
Sorry.
share your Slack.
Thank
I
you.
often make the same mistake. It that need to be edited, but we can see if you want that to be edited, just let me know. It's just like the Slack.
So
Do
you
we-
mean, Marie-Alice, that OpenAPI is becoming a kind of API standard for newcomers?
OpenAI, yes. Well, Antonio mentioned the naming. Why is everyone using assistant, system, and user? It's because it's the OpenAI standard. Well, it's everyone is copying what they are doing because they were the first. But yeah. So I don't think it's
Yeah.
That's good to know. Thank you, Mary Alice. So what are
Yeah.
you working on, Mary Alice? Are you on launching 4G project?
No, I wrote a book on OpenAI and ChatGPT and GPT-4 to develop applications with those. So I know the OpenAI API. I was a Java developer. Now I'm a Python developer.
Okay, that's great. It's
Awesome.
good to have you on board.
I guess a question I have to the group is, especially to folks, Maria Alice and others that have more extensively used the LangChain API. Do you think that this is a case where we should be trying to have a veneer, like an API over top of what is provided, or do we think that the LangChain, having been around and starting to be, I mean, I'm hearing both that it's sort of a bit of a de facto API standard for trying to interact with lots of different LLMs, but at the same time, it's also not necessarily written in a way that is beautifully elegant for Java developers and poorly documented. So I guess the question in my mind is whether it makes more sense in the MicroProfile space that we provide our own API that people code to in their applications, or would it make more sense for us to get out of the way and basically have people use the LangChain API directly, perhaps with some annotations that we add in to make that more easy to integrate with in applications that support CDI and that model. So any opinions on, I guess, the veneer model or the get out of the way model?
I can provide my answer. I know a little LangChain 4G. I have used mostly a Quarkus LangChain 4G integration. And for me, it is a good example of what we should do. I mean, Quarkus LangChain 4G facilitates clearly with annotation. It's MicroProfile mindset, I would say. It facilitates the use of LangChain. You don't have to care with all the specific API from LangChain 4G. So for me, LangChain 4G is very interesting in terms of implementation, what it provides, but I think we can simplify, propose something more micro-profile oriented on top of it, like Quarkus, similar to what Red Hat has done with Quarkus along Chain4j.
Okay.
If
I
I can,
have seen what Quarkus did, and I kind of like it sort of tried to take LangChain, but give a simpler interface for people who are trying to do common things, I guess, through the
Yes.
annotations that they introduced, which was nice.
It's very simple. It's inspired from REST client. For instance, you just define a REST AI service as an interface, and that's it. Difficult to be more easier, to be easier.
Hmm.
Marie-Alice, do not hesitate to disagree.
Yeah, no, I think you have more experience than me on this Quarkus and LangChain for J integration. I think LangChain for J is well advanced. It's well, the people working on it are great, and I think it's okay to rely on this project. Maybe for long term something else can happen, but yeah, I don't see. I think it's a good choice to start with this.
This is, in my mind, it's a tiny bit like I think of Micrometer, and perhaps versus OpenTelemetry or other APIs. In my mind, Micrometer has done a really nice job with their API, and that's one of the reasons why people like Micrometer, is that they're able to use that API, and it's easy to understand and easy to get up and going with, which I don't think I could say with as much confidence about the LangChain API. I've used it a bit, but other than the parts that are consistent, everything else is idiomatic. It feels like every different LLM seems to have its own mini sub API that you have to use to actually use it, which doesn't feel a lot like an API. So I could see, V2 of this coming along from the side, and eventually somebody builds a more consistent and graceful API that everybody loves. But I think part of that is just the industry trying to shake out what different methods are needed and to actually have any consistency between the LLMs, so that you could have any kind of consistency at a API level. So I don't know if that could happen yet, that somebody could just go and write one API to rule them all. That's really nice. Otherwise, I think people would be doing that.
I think you brought up a good point, Don. I was also looking at it from how we can provide value with either this wrapper or annotations, and you brought up Micrometer, and I think the observability space helps, especially with RAG ingestion. There's not a very good, I guess, consensus on how to, or a set of tools on how to improve the fine tuning of RAG. And one of the challenges is observability. So at least at the basic level, I think maybe at least version 1 should have some basic metrics, like how many tokens are used, how many tokens will I be charged for the LLM, and RAG training is really more of an exercise in how to write the prompt efficiently and effectively. And it's trial and error, at least from my experience. And what would help, and I think what would help other developers, would be to have some type of some basic observability to help with that trial and error and fine tuning for RAG ingestion.
And I know Quarkus is actually, I give another credit to them, that when they added annotations for being able to do some simple stuff, they built into those annotations metrics that would, I guess, as part of the interceptors, to add timing and add counting and that kind of stuff to their annotations that they added, which I thought was pretty helpful. So I agree. I agree with you, and I agree. I see Maria Elise said put something in the comments. I think the observability is kind of interesting, and I guess while we're saying we might for version 1 we might want to try and be fast and get something out. I think the challenge to this is that the existing art in this space, like Quarkus's implementation, already does it. So if we come up with something later with less capability, that might seem
There's,
behind.
I know OpenTelemetry, there's a couple of vendors and projects that have submitted proposals for their own, I forgot what the term was, the semantic
Semantic convention.
Semantic convention, right, for OpenTelemetry. So they've provided their proposal on how to expose that observability to OTel, OpenTelemetry.
Yeah, so I think I will see that's the kind of integration, not coming up with another metrics observability kind of
Right.
framework.
But
Yeah.
interworking, you know, yeah.
What
Yeah,
would be
so-
our next step here, Emily? Do you think we
Yeah.
have to ask for a fork of the Quarkus implementation or get inspiration from elsewhere? It seems that
Yeah.
Quarkus implementation is Quarkus solution to wrap LangChain4j is interesting. Should we consider it as a
Yeah, I think it's the next step is if can you share your screen again? We can wrap it up probably in 5 minutes. Sorry about the kind of overrun a bit. So it's so we kind of define some annotations. Obviously from the inspiration from Quarkus, the LangChain4j integration. So I know the launching also like Quarkus also have an embedding and also have the chat the chat AI annotation. I think we kind of pretty much we can take a look the annotation and then we'll see whether we can do anything better than that. Yeah. So it's kind of the from the scope wise, I think it's pretty much the chat client embedding moderation client and etc. And I use MicroProfile config to provide all the configuration to choose even for the vector database etc. I think we can like come up with the annotation. And also we can start talking about implementation next time. So this is what I'm thinking. For this kind of the prototype, you can directly put in the sandbox and then we discuss and then every time we make some progress and we reiterate and then we can go from there. That's the kind of what I'm thinking. What do you think? What do the people think?
What concretely should we put in the sandbox? It's not clear to me. Proposal for annotation, things like that?
Yeah, anything. A proposal for annotation and even
the stuff
all
that we put
this.
here, we should start writing the code with the document with the Java doc and stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah. And then if you Antoine, if you share the sandbox link I put on the chat.
And I'm not sure to have the link.
Okay.
Can you do it?
Yeah, let me do it. Let me share. So if I do,
It was in the chat. We can put it in the chat.
I
oh,
put it
okay.
in the chat.
Oh, thank you. So here, like in the sandbox, not starter. So it's the here in the proposal. So AI. So it's in the folder here. We can put the README with our like scope, and then you can directly in this folder create source and create basically the annotations. You can see some these APIs. Yeah, can see
Mhm.
the GW bridge. So we could have a kind of all the things here, but in this case, we work on this kind of pretty much the APIs, also the specs. So it's we can put a spec doc directly here. You can basically put in the ASCII doc and all this here. We put in the sandbox, and hopefully after like a few months, hopefully not a long time, and then we kind of have a rough idea, and we can propose to have a dedicated repo created. We can directly move the API and spec TCK into the dedicated repo. Yeah, and go from there. And then at the same time, we will see kind of where to put the implementation. So also in the currently in here in this sandbox, we could even add the implementation to an info folder here and to the implementation as well. And then we'll decide where to put the implementation permanently, or either in the small right place or in some other different org.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Emily,
Yeah.
do you mind just popping those into the minutes for everybody?
Yeah, I will do that. I will update the minutes. Yeah. The minutes is in.
Okay.
Okay, I will say action. So who will come up with the APIs and also the specs?
By the way, Emily, I think you're in the 8th of April instead of the 15th of April section.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well noticed.
This was
Welcome. So who will put the annotations? Antoine?
we can do it together, Antoine. But this week is
Yeah.
DevOps.
This week is
France.
DevOps France. Looks it won't be this week if it's us, because we'll be in
DevOps.
the conference in DevOps. Yeah, but next week, yeah,
I can
Okay.
I can help Antoine. Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
And also
Also, we can.
was Ricky, right? Ricken.
We can, yeah, as well.
Regret.
Yeah. Okay. So create annotation together with specs. So what about others? So it's I know it's Rohik, right? It's a left or not? Buhik, you also come up with some other ideas. So what are things would you like to work on, Buhik?
Okay, is this basically creating ideas on a possible client, or
No, create basically is APIs and also
yeah,
spec here in the sandbox. Or maybe you can basically Antoine, Gian Francisco, and Ricken will work together for the annotation. Maybe we can all review it. If you want, start with writing some tests. It'll be also nice.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Stay calm, Emily. Not at the end of next week. We don't have a TCK. We won't have a TCK at the end of.
So I know this week are going to be you'll be busy with the DevOps of France this week, right? This week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some
So Yeah,
From
we can.
Wednesday to Friday, yeah.
Okay, Wednesday to Friday. Okay. Anyway, we'll meet again next week to see how much we make progress, and then kind of research.
Okay.
Basically, it's rediscussed. Okay, so that's good. The other thing is Bohik, can you also like go through the basically the proposal doc here, and then to see whether it's review it, to see whether it cover all the things in your doc. If not,
Okay.
can you basically add this in? Okay,
Okay.
that's great. Okay, thank you all. Any last minute comment?
No, I was suggesting only that if Buek, you have a very different idea, perhaps you can try to make a suggestion with another branch, and we can compare both of them. Could be also a solution.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Do you know what Bohik, what Antoine said? So basically, you could come up with a separate basically API or spec, just using a different branch. Do a PR as well, so we
Yeah.
can compare.
Okay. So
Okay.
I'm not sure we will be able to perform some work this week, but we start
Yeah.
with a pull request.
Yes,
Something like
start
that.
with
Okay.
the pull request,
Okay,
and then
great.
we'll discuss next week. And
Okay.
then if we can roughly on the right path, we can merge it, and then we reiterate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you,
you
Melanie.
next week.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Yes, guys.